All right. Today we're gonna do a different kind of video. We're gonna talk about affordable classic cars. It's gonna be a weird one, and I'm just gonna go on a bit of a rant. We'll talk about it and see where it goes. Excuse me. All right, so let's start. This is something new to the channel. Just rolled in the shop here yesterday, and it's a 69 Dart. It's a 340 with a 4-speed. And there's probably guys already, I can't believe someone would take a car that's real nice and throw all these stickers on there. Well, for you guys, this isn't a nice car. In fact, this is a Joe Dirt shitbox. In fact, if I owned this car, I'd probably put Joe Dirt shitbox on the back window. Check it out. It comes with its hillbilly tarantulas. Yeah, there's been a few of them come out of this, so I don't know where the hell he parks it. But anyway, we'll explain that in a minute. Because it does look pretty good, don't it? Oh. We'll talk about that in a minute. What I want to talk about is affordability and guys who work for a living. Guys like me, blue-collar guys, guys that don't make $300,000 a year. This is not a complete restoration, but the bottom of the car was cleaned up and painted, stuff like that. The owner's a mechanic. Everything under the hood has been blown apart, put back together, cleaned up, reconditioned, and all kinds of stuff, and rebuilt and regasketed and recored. You get the idea. A lot of money was put into this, and it already ran and drove just fine before. If you saw this on the channel, it was a real shitty salmon pink color. It was disgusting. Nothing wrong with a pink Cadillac, but the color they threw on this, it was like some kind of cheesy acrylic or acrylic enamel, and it had just faded to hell. It was ugly. And the reason the guy owns this car, it was a cheap car that he bought back when he was young. He sold it, and the car was gold, and he had painted it white. And out of the blue, he pulls over on the side of the road to look at a car for sale. Long story short, it was his car, but some dude bought it off him and painted it pink, and then it sat in storage. And one day it went out for sale. He bought the car back. He always wanted it to be burgundy or dark red, and this is the color it's going to be. I think it's going to be sweet. It looks brighter on camera than in real life. It's kind of a bloody candy apple with metallic in it. I mean, check it out, though. Like, you can see how it's bouncing in the light. It's really nice. I don't know if anybody's going to care or ask, but there's your paint code. That's out of either the BASF or the RM paint book. MR 201.50. And then, there's a 202, 203, and so on. And they're similar but lighter. This is the one we wanted because it's like I say, candy apple blood. I love it. Red metallic. That's all it said in the book. So that's what we mixed up for it. He chose it off a color card. Here's some parts we finished there. Those hide the door hinges and shit. Anyway, this car has been filled and blocked and messed with in a many ways, and this is a lot of money. He's got all the interior redone with white leather, cowhide, real leather. So it's going to be red, white walls, and they're wider whites than these, and they're from, I think, Corker Tire. And then he found a set of wheels for this that are original Cadillac spoked that have all been re-chromed, but it's not like a hubcap, it's an actual spoked rim. So that'll be cool. So this color, white inside, and with all the chrome on it, it's cool. If you want to know what this car looks like with all the chrome, Car Wizard, go check out his channel. He just bought a black one for himself, and it's the identical car. The only difference is this one has AC where his doesn't. So give his channel a like and a shout out and check it out. But anyway, the only reason I'm doing a plug for him is because he just did a few videos of one of these in black, and there's not a lot of videos on these out there. So if you want to see what this looks like with all the chrome, you'll understand why we're doing one solid color. I know I wanted to do red down here and do a white top. The owner insisted on this, but now that I've seen a solid color, when there's so much chrome on this car, it's going to be totally fine and totally cool. My point is, we're looking at a 63 Cadillac. You probably can't afford to do everything we did to this. Now, if you buy a driver that's fairly clean, maybe you can just drive that. These cars aren't that expensive, but this car is going to be way more expensive than it needs to be. Let me put it that way. Well, this is not the case. So the story on this car, I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. If you saw my videos in the past, there's a few videos on a 69 Satellite Sport. He's a good friend of mine that owns the car, and we did it in yellow with the black treatment on the hood, and we did a 440, and the rest of it is all pretty much stock Satellite, you know, but dual exhaust. Well, the Satellite Sport, right? It was, you know, it was up there. They weren't like you had your Satellite and your Roadrunner. A Roadrunner was a stripped down car with a big motor. He does have a few GTXs. Well, he's got one, like a really nice one, convertible, 440, 4-gear. But the Satellite Sport would have been a 318 car, but everything else was like as loaded as you could pretty much get it. He restored a 68 Dart. And I'm only talking about that because the only reason this 69 exists is because he restored a 68. Let me explain. When you restore a car, much like the Cadillac I just showed you, everything has to be just so. And even the bottom of your trunk lid needs to be like this. Cadillac did a black underhood treatment. We did the same thing. So that's a bit of a, it's not a SEMA show car that we're doing out of the Cadillac, but it's a really, really high-end driver, you know, so at your weekend shows, it's going to stand out. But this car, the reason this came to be, when the 68 Dart was being restored, he had a lot of spare parts, like, see all the pitting in the chrome? Pitting in the bezels. This panel's not perfect, and I don't even know if it's correct for this car, but who cares? It could be, I don't know. Just some of it is, some of it isn't. It doesn't matter. This particular car was a 69 Dart that was, you know, it probably had 10, 15 years of life on the road and got a little crappy down around the bottom, and right down here you can see the bubbles. And someone kind of bonded it up, turned it into a race car. It spent its life going to the track in Shannonville, Ontario. And somebody raced this at the drag strip. Now, I don't know what class he raced it in. Probably street class with a hopped up motor or something. But it is frame tight underneath. And there's some bracketry welded to it to make it, you know, stronger. So I think he was in like maybe bracket. I don't know. I don't know all the rules. I haven't been in drag racing since the early 90s, so it is what it is. Basically, my buddy found this car as a shell. So basically, there was no front fenders, there was no powertrain, no front suspension, and I think he said there wasn't even a K-frame in this. It did come with the doors, the shell, as you see it, and the trunk lid. There was nothing on the trunk lid, though, if I'm not mistaken. Like maybe this was there, I can't remember. But he might have swapped that out or something. But at any rate, 2 doors and your body and a trunk. There was no bumpers, no lights. You get the idea. Nothing. There was an axle that he could move, but there was nothing in it. And there was nothing under the front. No suspension. No interior, with the exception of the headliner. And it did have a dash. It might not have been this dash, because he likely changed it. I know he did the pad and the heater box. So basically what he did with this is like, you know, well, look at the rubber here. It's wore, but it's not bad. But, I mean, not show car worthy. You saw the bumpers, you know. This was the handles off the other one. There's pits. They're not terrible. But as he built his other car, the other car became you keep chasing stuff. Everything becomes new and expensive. You know, the whole reason we're doing this video is because of that car. I know what it takes to do a car to a mint condition level, and it is expensive. Like, look at the mirror. This is not that car. This is the mirror that was on that car, but he put shiny, clean, the best of the best of the best, the best trims, the best. Look, this doesn't even have a trim on it. They did put these corners on though, so there's no gap, and they just painted the whole thing orange. But on the other car, that all had to be perfect. Perfect nickel, perfect bumpers, perfect grille. You get the idea. These bumpers, they're really nice, but they need to be re-chromed. You picking that up on camera? There you go. There it is. Okay. You get the idea. So, like the grill, you had these bezels, somebody hand painted. They're kind of not real nice. The grill's pretty good. You know, little ding there. You could probably straighten that out. But look, a brand new light there. Almost. And then that one's like faded to hell. But this is the hood off his other car. He found a better hood, because this one was aftermarket and painted, is what he told me. I don't know if that's true, but that's the color of the other car that he restored. But this wasn't the right hood for whatever reason, and he changed the hood. So he had this hood kicking around. He had the interior. Perfect example of, like, he needed a car that was 100% correct. And for some reason, this interior came with that other car, and it wasn't good enough. You know, little spot there. I don't know if this is a good pattern or not. It is what it is. But, like, it's very nice. So he bought this shell, knowing he had all this stuff. I think he had to buy a carpet. He put that dash pad in. There's a crack up there somewhere, but he just cleaned it up, painted it, put it on. You know, there's your doors. That could be painted. The door cards are nice. He had them from another car, but he needed better ones. You kind of start seeing a picture here. He only bought this shell because he went to buy something for his other car off of some gentleman who had this body. And the story was, when this was retired as a race car, it was sold to a guy who was going to restore a Dart. He bought all the stuff and the parts and pieces, and he had begun the restoration. And then all of a sudden he came across a body that someone brought up from Arizona that was perfect. So he robbed everything off this, plus the parts he had. He built the other car. So this was like a shell with a title. Gas cap. Nice, but kind of crappy, you know? Junkyard fresh. Wheels. Looks like a real nice Krager SS. Oh, wait a minute. And it's all kind of pitted a little bit, but not bad. And look at the bolts and stuff in there. It's all kind of flaky and pitted. And, you know, it looks really good when you're standing back here. So you walk up on it. This whole entire car technically needs to be restored. It's got the cool things on the hood. And they're actually not too bad, but there is some pitting and you can feel it. You know, they're not perfect. But if you had an old original car and this was on there, you'd leave it. Wow, that almost looked like a label maker made it. But no, it's okay. But you're starting to get what we have here. Yeah, see wipers. They're kind of odd colored, you see what I'm saying? Like they're tarnished and stuff, you know. They're not bad. You could probably polish them, you know, but they're not great. But I'm sure there's new rubber wipes in them. It's got the lights with those nice chrome things on them. But you come up close, you can see that they're not perfect. They're okay. They could probably be polished. So I think I'm starting to paint a picture of what this is. This is a $2,500 shell. And the only thing he didn't have for this was the front fenders. Front fenders he bought, and they were aftermarket. Now when you look down the side of the car, this panel from here to here, when you look down it, it's a little bit ripply. He just painted them. He never bodyworked them. So this was a 4-speed 340 car, and it is now a 340 4-speed car. But he had some car that got wrecked years ago, and it was a 1970. So that's a 70 motor attached to its original 70 transmission with the 70 radiator that likely was redone at some point. He gasketed it, he did a carburetor, he cleaned it up. You get the idea. But this is not a money car. This is how cheap can I put this together? Now, where he did spend money, the front end and the suspension, all the good stuff, the rear spring pack, new shocks all around, brakes, right? No farting around with that. That's all new. So as far as going down the road, run, drive, stop, this thing is really, really good. There's a little bit of tick or something in the motor, so he's going to pull those off when we're done with it here. And but it's a turnkey run and drive. There's like a tap it noise. It sounds like a spring or something in the anyway. He's a Mopar mechanic. He's not worried he's going to fix that up. But it doesn't hurt it to drive it. There's just a little bit of a tick to it. So you can afford this, probably, you know. Could you restore this car? Look, I restore cars. I wouldn't. So here's why it's here, and here's what we're going to do. The door corner is kind of bad like that on both sides. And where you see that rust on the rocker, I got to put a piece in there. But look down here. He started poking at it and found some holes. So we're going to do a rocker panel. We're going to patch up this rear quarter. And I mean, if it's rough inside, we're just going to cut it off. We're going to make a new one. We're not even going to buy a quarter. I mean, this is fine. We're not touching it. Now, these are normally rotten all up around here. There's a little dot there. The rest is fine, so we're not touching that. And then back here, like, you know, just some of the low spots. And I think what saved it is when it started getting kind of crusty, someone just bundled it up, turned it into a race car, and it took like probably 30 some years for it to come back. So it's got a floor patch in it, some welding underneath, like I said, and whatnot. But because it was a race car, they reinforced a few things. But it's a really good car. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix the body down low. Like here on both sides is a few bubbles. The other side's crusty. We're going to paint it right here. You can see the shadow in the body line. We're going to go from that line down across the whole bottom of the car. We're going to cut it off at the sticker. This all seems to be totally fine. It's just up here. We're going to blend up some orange till it's really, really close. And because of that shadow and break, no one will notice. The front fenders don't really match. The worst thing to me on this car is those brand new fenders. I can see it right now, but I don't know if I can get it on camera. There you go. See how it's all wavy? Yeah, that's just, you know, the nature of the beast. Those should have been filled and blocked. Even with a DA would have been better than, but he just scuffed and shot him, threw him on the car. The orange is pretty close, so he's happy with it. The hood sucks. This car, when it was a race car, always ran a black hood. We're going to paint the whole hood satin black. And the cowl is just ugly as hell. So I'm going to run off the corner of the hood. We're going to run our tape up, and we're going to curl it here so that it matches the line that comes down here. And then anyway, you run this straight, and then you put a nice little round on it. We're going to black that out with the hood. And then we're going to go up to that line. We are going to touch this up because this is just ugly. I don't mind like scratches and chips, but yeah, that cowl just, when you walk up to this car, it's the ugliest thing on the car. As you can see on top, someone piled crap on here and probably a hood, you know, it was a race car. So there's little chips and scratches. Scratched. So if you found a body like this and you had a couple of friends that had some Mopar graveyards or whatever, you might not get an interior quite this nice, but you could probably get a usable back seat, throw a few buckets in out of a 90s, 2000s, whatever, Mustang, who cares, right? I'm talking about drivable hot rod. I'm not talking about pristine show car. You know, you could easily do a hopped up 318, but there's still a lot of 360s out there, you know, and with a good transmission and the right gear ratio, you can make a car like this go really, really fast. And I mean, if you're not into playing with the gears because you're not that endowed mechanically, you can always get a whole axle drive out of a wreck. And as long as it's all in good shape, just slap it in, you know, put it together, figure it out. A nice set of Kragers with tires on them, even though they're all pitted and whatnot. I mean, that's kind of a good thing because that means you get them on Marketplace for $400 or $500 with rubber on them. Just make sure there's no cracking. Maybe check the date code. He had these from, who knows, he's got so many Mopars, I don't know what they came off of. But again, you know, you could drop in like $2,000-$3,000 for an engine and transmission. I'm sure you can find that. You know, $500 for a set of wheels and tires, maybe $1,000. We're still only talking $4 or $5 grand. The car was $2,500. You're starting to see what I'm saying, right? A couple of fenders, about $400 or $500 a piece. Worst case scenario, you've got a $200-$300 hood. If you get one that's a little beat up, who cares? This is like Joe Dirt, right? 100%, but solid and clean. So you can afford this. This is a good way to go, right? We could paint the hood orange too, but we know it's never going to quite match. The fenders almost do, but not quite. When we do the bottom, the shadow will make it kind of look like it works. But, you know, we found out that this car was a race car with a black hood on it. Pretty much it's most of its life. So we're just going to black that out, right up the cowl, and it's just going to be like, you know, it's going to look like something that a nasty teenager might have drove around back in 79 or 82, right? And I mean, that's kind of cool. It's nostalgic. We're not taking none of the stickers off. They were all there. We're leaving them. It's how the car was run and raced and trailered, looking just like this. So none of that has been touched, body and paint wise. All we're doing is cleaning up the rot. Once the rot is gone, that's it. This car will be done. Right? The guy's got nothing into this but all his extra junk. So swap meets, parts. A guy at home could build this for like $10,000-$12,000, I'm gonna say. And because you go through it and you build it, if you're careful, you know, maybe you're not buying junk. Now, if you go check out Uncle Tony's channel, UTG, whatever that's called, he went and bought some kind of driver, but then they went through it and fixed this and that. And, you know, it's not a bad way to go. And he's got a lot of really, really good points. Where this guy has a bit of an advantage, you know, he's an older mechanic who's crowding 70, and he specializes in you know, 60s and 70s Mopar. So for him, it was like, I know the carb don't work, this, that, whatever. Either he's got one or he'll find one. But he's not afraid to spend money. Like, he'll drop $500-$600 on a carburetor in the blink of an eye, right? Now that sounds like, oh, well, see, that'll all add up and cost money. But, you know, again, you know, the chrome is so-so. The wipers are they're all kind of tarnished and crappy. Like, they're not nice enough for anything else. But honestly, this car, all the pieces on this car are totally fine for this car. Once we clean up the bottom, there will be no rust on the car. And I'll tell you what, when you take this car to a car show, because I go to car shows with this guy all the time, people love this car. Everybody wants to buy it. And two reasons for that. One, orange is crazy. And even though people wouldn't paint a car orange most of the time, when you see it sitting there, it's like badass. It's loud, right? There it is. And it's not, see, there's the correct orange, and this is like pumpkin. And maybe that was another color they had. I don't know. Don't care. We don't know what it is. It's just on the car. I don't even know what color this was originally. But I like the color. I tried to buy this off him after he'd put it all together. I offered like kind of, sort of stupid money. You know, $10K cash. I'll just come right out and say it. About 2 years ago, I saw this thing running, driving just as you're seeing it. It had old flaky keystones on it. It didn't have these on it. But otherwise, it was pretty much like this. I offered him 10K. 10K is cheap for a running, driving, you know, on the road, drivable 69 Mopar, anything. And my intent wasn't to restore this. And if he were to change his mind and sell it to me tomorrow, I still wouldn't restore this. I would do exactly what I said, and I'm running the car because it's good the way it is. You know, you want the rallies, go find a set, paint them, throw them on. You can do all those little things. I mean, look at this. He didn't have anything to put here. Okay, so I'm going to fix that for him because I don't think he knows that that's loose. But look, that came out of some old green Valiant down in his junkyard, no doubt. Wonder what's on the other side. Yep. So I might pop those out. Oh, this one's in there properly. But I'm going to take those out, and I'll probably, once I'm done painting the bottom, I'll spray those orange because, wow, that really sucks. Well, one was green. Yeah, no, that's green, but this one's dark green. The other one's not so dark. So anyway, like I said, spare parts. The one thing that sucks with Mopars, I will mention, because he mentioned it a couple of times, the heater box in this car is a combination of 4 heater boxes. And I don't think there was one in here. He got one that looked good, opened it up, and then he went through his Valiants and his Dusters and whatever he had in the junk pile. So that's something where you might have to spend money, because you can send the heater box out and get it redone. I don't know what it cost, but I'm sure it's hundreds, maybe 1,000. Like, I've heard it's not cheap. I've never done one, so I don't know. But in this case, he had enough of them kicking around. He blew them all apart, and he was able to put it together. And then there's, I don't know, maybe there's foam or gaskets, but whatever. I'm sure if he did that, that would be new. But he had to combine a few of those. So that's where Mopars are funny. So you got to be a little resourceful. Now, that said, you could shut the heater right off and throw a vintage air kit in it, right? They're not cheap either, but then you got hot and cool. You know, if you live down in New Mexico or something, that might be a good idea. Anyway, this is the car. This is something you can own, and it ain't going to cost you $1 million gazillion dollars. You know, I don't know. Could you build this for $10,000, $15,000? Let's say even, come on, you can build this for $15K, and there'll be nothing wrong with this. And honestly, learn to paint on a couple cardboard boxes. You can probably buy like a Black Widow gun from Harbor Freight and paint that bottom in yourself. We're just going to do a single stage. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut a chunk of the rod out and take the color into my paint guy. And we're going to basically just come close to it, you know, play with it until it's close enough. We're going to spray it on. We'll be happy. My paint guy and his paint guy is the same guy. And if you look at that, like you can see, it's really, really close. You know, most people don't notice that the front fenders are different, but you see how I play with the camera, and you can almost see that they're not quite the same, but they kind of are. But I think what happened is he got the color really, really damn close, but the rest of the car, now, could you blend it? Well, of course you could, but there's chips, and we're not doing that, right? We're not going to repaint this car. You could build this car the way it is, drive it for a few years, save up a few grand, and then you could throw a nice paint job on this car. So you do have options, but I don't think this car needs that. I think it's cool the way it is. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you look back, I think I did a walk around on my 79 Firebird, and it's my own personal car. So if you want to go check that out, it'll give you an idea of, again, cheap, drivable, classic cars. That's something that, you know, there just ain't enough of. You know, everybody says I want one, but I can't afford one. I'm not going to talk about this car too much. I'm just going to do a walk around. It's a 79 Firebird Esprit 301 V8. It's not particularly fast. Runs good, drives good, passes car on the highway. Won't do a burnout. At least I've never tried, and I don't really care. I've got 8.5-inch wheels on it now from American Racing Wheel. Original paint. There's a few places where it's got a couple of repairs and blends. It's never been welded on. No rod underneath. No floor patches. I can put this on the hoist. You can look all day. That's why I bought this. It's not a Trans Am. It wasn't expensive. I bought this for, what, $3-4 grand back in 2018. I put $1,000 worth of parts in it, including a safety check to get it on the road. So it basically has all new suspension, all new brakes, all new body mounts. You get the idea. And this cost me like $5,000 in total. And now in 2024, it's probably 10, 12, I don't know. I don't know what it's worth. If it were a Trans Am, it'd be worth a lot more, but I don't care. Because if I wanted one of those, I'd just clone this, because you will not find a car as clean as this one. I drive it the way it is, and I drive it daily. Look, there's mud on it. So it's going to have to be painted, because there's a bit of that. can see a bit of paint coming apart, a little bit of paint coming off, a little bit of paint coming off over there. You get the idea. But, you know, oh, if I had it, I'd have to paint it real nice. Yeah, me too. And I paint cars for a living. Imagine that. But you know what? I don't got time. And I don't want to have this sitting in the shop in pieces. Because I know when I do it, it'll all be blown apart and done right. This is probably one of my favorites. Out of all the cars I've owned, I might like this one the best. I can get in it, I can turn the key, and I can drive it. I can go into the city for parts, 2 hours away. I'm not afraid to do a 4-hour drive with this. Can you live with a bit of stain? I got new ones, but I'm not putting them on until I paint the car. Should just yank them off, really. You can see I got rips in the seat, but the rest is good. It holds up. I just use it the way it is. Dash was nice, then it cracked in the middle. We're going to replace that. I took the headliner out. We're going to replace that. This plastic's bad. I had to get a new one. We're going to switch all the interior into black, and then I'll paint the car. But in the meantime, if I got to go to the store tonight, I take this. Basically, if it ain't winter, that's my daily. If you can't afford that, you can probably afford something like this. And if you really want a hot rod, you know, it ain't rocket science to go out and buy a hopped up 350 and transmission and switch that over. And if you don't know what you're doing, 4 or 5 YouTube videos should be able to help you out. You can't afford it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.